Okay, we're going to start. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Just Security Dialogue. Today, we're going to hear from two amazing researchers, early career researchers that are working on the margins of oceans governance and maritime security issues in the Gulf of Guinea. I want to go straight to the point because in the past webinars, we've realized that we don't actually have enough time for questions. So I'm hoping that by doing a brief introduction of today's seminar or webinar, we're able to allow for more time for people to ask questions at the end of the presentation. We have Sedinam, who will be presenting on prevalence and socioeconomic effects of fisheries crime among small-scale fisheries in Ghana. And this will be followed by Dr. Fineface, who will be talking on network of organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea, trends, dynamics, and implication. The nature of the webinar is such that it is reciprocal, at least in the way that the presenters give back to each other with Sedinam introducing herself, and then after her presentation, Dr. Fineface would give brief feedback and reflection of her presentation, and then introduce himself, then do his presentation, and Sedinam will reciprocate, after which we'll then open the floor for questions. So sit back, enjoy, and welcome to Just Security Dialogue, Voices from the Coast. Thank you so much. On that note, I'm going to give the floor to Sedinam.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. Thank you very much, Dr. Ife. And I'll start sharing my screen now. I believe you can all see the screen. Please, can we see the screen?
Yes, we can see it now.
Right. So I'm going to please, can you see just the screen?
Yes, we see just the presentation.
All right. And so my name is Sedinam. My name is Sedinam. I'm a nature Mondi, and I'm an ocean researcher, maritime security researcher. I currently intern with Center for Maritime Law and Security, Africa in Ghana here. And my presentation is going to be on my MPhil thesis. I have my MPhil in economic governance and social resilience. And the presentation title is The Prevalence and Socio-Economic Effects of Fisheries Crime Among Small-Scale Fishers in Ghana, Evidence from the Randomized Response and Direct Questioning Techniques. So I'll take you through my presentation outline, which has my introduction, methodology, results, discussions, conclusions, recommendations, and acknowledgements. And so for the sake of the presentation, fisheries crime has other things, but my studies focused on IUU fishing. So I focus solely on small-scale fisheries in Ghana. And when it comes to IUU fishing, these are the definitions per our Ghanaian laws as at the time I was doing my studies. And so illegal fishing was the use of unauthorized fishing methods such as dynamite, light fishing, small mesh size net, monofilament, carbide, and then we also have the illegal transshipment of fish, which is the transshipment of fish from industrial vessels to shore without authorization. Then we have unregulated, which is fishing by vessels without nationality, outside conservation measures inconsistent with international laws and regional conservation frameworks. And then we have the unreported, which are activities that are misreported or not reported to the Ghana Fisheries Commission or regional bodies, and also in violation to our regional reporting requirements. And so the following laws, which you see over there, are the relevant Ghanaian laws that support this. And so one of the things that we noticed was that fish production in the artisanal sector has declined, and it has led to the decrease in the number of fishers. And then there's livelihood challenges in our coastal communities. And IUU fishing has cost Ghana, as of 2020, cost Ghana nearly $23.7 million in revenue annually. And then we know also small pelagic populations have dropped by 80% the past 2 decades due to such activities. Now, in 2017, realized that 90%, a study showed that 90% of artisanal marine fishermen used illegal mesh size nets, and more than 99% of these fishermen on Ghana's waters also used illegal fishing gears. Despite the legal sanctions that is ongoing, the government has done a lot of regulations when it comes to IUU fishing in our waters. Cycle, which is the transshipment of fish and other illegal activities, still persists, which indicates to some of us that it probably is the gap in enforcement and also understanding what the issue is. And so the research, existing research has emphasized that there are policy or regulatory gaps, but has provided little or limited insights to why these small-scale fishers engage in these illegal activities, or the socio-economic effects of these activities at the household level. The study wanted to bridge the gap, the methodological gap, where we introduced a randomized response technique, which is a survey technique that helps us to understand illegal activities while protecting the respondents' anonymity. So the randomized response technique has succeeded in conserving wildlife, but remained underexplored in Ghana's fishing industry. And so this study pioneers its use to reveal hidden practices while safeguarding anonymity. And this study finally addresses both gaps to generate actionable evidence for policy, governance, and community intervention. So the general objective for the study was to understand the socioeconomic effects of IUU fishing on Ghana's small-scale sectors by first specifically quantifying the prevalence of these activities, identifying the main ideas or the main drivers, behind these practices from the perspective of the fisherfolks, and also to examine the socioeconomic effects of these activities on the small-scale fisheries. So this was the methodological, this is the methodology, and this is an overview. For the research philosophy was pragmatism, research approach was mixed method, research. For the research design, convergent parallel design. For our sampling and target population, we looked at fishing communities, and we were guided by the 2022 Canoe Frame Survey, and our population was the fishermen and individuals in the small-scale sector. And for sampling, we used purposive sampling for the focus group discussion and convenience sampling. So the study was conducted in both the Western and Volta regions of Ghana because of the research fatigue that we have, studies have shown happening in the Central and Greater Accra regions of Ghana. There's a lot of attention there when it comes to these activities, hence the need for us to go to the extremes. While this also, conclusion was also based on our pilot study that was conducted. And so in the Western region, the study was carried out in 9 communities within the Nzima East district, particularly in Adzim, while in the Volta region, it was conducted in 7 communities across the 3 districts of the Volta region. And so the sample size was 269, and then we used the data collection tools, was semi-structured questionnaires, focus group discussion, some key informant interviews with fishers and chief fishermen. And as I rightly said from the beginning, we used a randomized response technique, which we integrated in the design of the questionnaire to reduce biases and maintain confidentiality. For analysis, for the qualitative part of the analysis, insights we gathered from the focus group discussion, we used a thematic analysis was used to analyze it. And then we manually coded it to extract meaningful pattern to related to the objectives of the study. And then we applied triangulation with qualitative responses to validate and enrich the interpretation of quantitative findings. And for the quantitative data analysis, we used descriptive and inferential statistics and inferential analysis, such as the randomized response technique and then the direct responses. So the main deal, what were the findings? So for the study, this is the demographics, we had 73% of our respondents being married. For the educational level, we realized we had 39% of them having at least primary education. Then the same people, we realized that the age group for the study, for the respondents, sorry, was between 38 to 47 years, and 58.7% of them were employed by somebody. The reason why we wanted to know whether they were self-employed or they were employed by somebody was so that we can understand why they engage in some of these activities. So for the objective one, the results showed that with a direct approach, which is the normal way everybody would have asked questions, do you engage in illegal activities? What are some of, we gave them all the illegal activities per the Ghanaian fisheries laws, and 14% of them said that they engage, 14.5% of them said, oh yes, they engage in illegal activities, while 85.5% of them said, no, never in their life they engage in such activity. They've never even done that. And with the 14.5%, a lot of them said they do engage in light fishing. They agree that light fishing is not good, but they engage in it because of the benefits of the light fishing. While some also, 27% of them said they engage in monofilament, the use of monofilament nets, because they don't see why monofilaments should be considered as illegal activities, should be considered as an illegal fishing gear to use in the first place. Then we use the randomized response approach, where we realized that over 60% of our responses, after analyzing, we first got 81 true responses, or let's say over 60% showed that they engage in at least one form of illegal activities, while 39.5% of them do not engage in illegal activity. Now, this goes on to explain that using the conventional way of understanding, or the conventional way of analyzing these, such activities, goes on to misinform us, and then helps also misinform our policies and what we also go ahead to do. So for the objective 2, we wanted to know what are the drivers from their perspective. And then 28% of them said that it's poverty that is forcing all of them to engage in these activities. And 39% of them said, oh, it is greed that causes them to go and engage in any form of the use of any illegal fishing gear. And then 33% of them said it's poor enforcement on the part of the enforcers side or regulatory side. Some of the focus group discussion insights we had was that some participants said that if they were better educated, they would know other ways to fish sustainably. And then others also said that if they don't catch fish, what else can they do? There are no other jobs for them. And then one thing that stood out for me was one person said that we know it is illegal, but when you see others doing it, you follow. If they arrest you, you can pay and walk away because others do the same. Thankfully, we've had the current regulations from the Fisheries Commission as of now. They are more, the fines are getting tougher and tougher. So I'm very sure this participant that said this would rethink it next time. And the objective 3, we looked at the perceived effects. So in their mind, what are the effects of these IUU fishing on both their job, on the fisheries, and then themselves? And they said that majority of them emphasized that, well, light fishing has caused the decline in the fish stock, and then also harms the environment as well. And some of them also said that they do not see unreported fishing as harmful to the environment in any way as well. Then we looked at the economic effects of it, perceived economic effects. Some said that yes, the illegal fishing has reduced their income in catch, and most of the fishers reported that the declines in fishing income and quantity of fish per trip is also there. And then they also stated that higher operational costs, 72.8% of them stated that higher operational costs, and also 50.8% of them stated that lower market value for fish. And they also made notes that economic strain on livelihood. So now they can no longer save as much, and they now have to work more days than before when the fishing industry was better. From the objective view, also from the focus group discussion, some of the insights we had was unstable catches force us to move and spend more just to make ends meet. Some also stated that even when we work harder, we catch less and barely cover expenses. And another participant states that they spend more days on the water, yet savings are impossible. So what is the finding for this, or in sum, what are we looking at? So for the prevalence, we realized that the method we used, which was the randomized response technique, it showed a higher engagement in IUU fishing, which is over 60%, while with the direct way of asking questions and with the direct approach, less than 15% of them agree they engage in illegal fishing. And that alone shows the wide gap, and it confirms that the illegal practices are widespread and is normalized across the fisheries sector in Ghana, the small-scale fisheries sector in Ghana. And with the drivers, we realize that the fisheries IUU fishing participation is shaped by socio-economic pressures, weak enforcement, cultural beliefs. Some of them believed that, from the focus group discussion, some believed that when they fortify themselves, I mean, with their, some have this, what do you call it, traditional way. If they fortify themselves in a traditional way, they wouldn't get caught when they go and engage in these activities. And then these things, results also align with the strategy of the commons, rational choice theory, and the Becker's crime and punishment theories. For the socioeconomic effects, IUU fishing has led to a declining income, reduced catch, higher operational costs, reduced savings capacity, and increased labor effort, while the destructive methods, which are the poison, the light fishing, dynamite, carbide, and among others, are perceived to severely undermine fish stock sustainability. In conclusion, the study confirms a high hidden prevalence of IUU fishing, with the RRT demonstrating that direct questioning significantly underestimates the involvement of these practices. And IUU is widespread. Fisheries crime is widespread and socially sensitive among small-scale fishers. Also, economic pressures, weak enforcement, sociocultural practices continue to drive these fishing activities, indicating that behavioral change cannot occur without addressing structural drivers such as poverty, limited livelihood options, and industrial fishing disputes. IUU fishing imposes substantial socioeconomic and ecological costs, reducing household income stability and accelerating stock depletion. Thus, effective policy responses must integrate enforcement with community-focused support system to achieve long-term sustainability. Recommendation: the study recommends that government agencies such as the Fisheries Commission should strengthen regulations and enforcement to reduce these practices, as they have already, with a recent check I had, they have started implementing these things. And also, they should engage with the people on ground on such alternative livelihood in collaboration with the NGOs and development partners amongst the group. And finally, to increase public awareness and education on the effect of these IUU fishing activities. So thank you for listening. I look forward to your feedback and your suggestions.
Thank you so much for a really interesting presentation. I wouldn't obviously want to do the job of Dr. Fineface, so I'll leave it to him to provide feedback, but it's quite interesting. And I also look forward to listening to his own presentation because there might be some intersection between what's happening in Ghana with the case studies or examples that you provided and the social realities and some of the points he's going to make in relation to what's happening in the Niger Delta. So over to you, Fineface, for a very short feedback, and then you introduce yourself and start your presentation. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Ife and Sidemen, for the presentation. Due to some technical issues, I actually joined late, and I apologize for that. So I started picking from the point she was talking about, the objective 1. And the brief point I got here has to do with the fact that about 14.5% of the participants agreed to the fact that they engage in IUU, which is the illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, there. And I also picked where she talked about, drivers of the IUU. And then from the perspective of the fisher folks, what drives is poverty, greed, and of course, enforcement. I was also able to pick some few points from the area of, her talking about passive effects of the IUU. It reduces income and of course, catch. I remember that she talked about the fact that the Ghanaian government is losing so much, to IUU annually because of, that practice in the waterways there. Then the issue of economic strain that's the people are passing through, and of course the fisher folks is also contributing to livelihood economic issues that is making them to get involved and driving IUU in the coast of Ghana. So I also picked the area she talked about 60% of people engage in IUU. Then in the conclusive part, she talked about the high hidden prevalence of an IUU going on, and then economic pressure on the people, weak enforcement are some of the things that is causing this, and then social-cultural practices are also contributing to this. So the recommendation part, she pushed for the need for government agencies to strengthen regulations and then reduce IUU within the area, and then NGOs collaborating with the fishing commission to ensure that some of the regulations are addressed for there to be this issue mitigated there. I know I didn't get it in full, but then those are the few I met after my technical issue. So Ife?
Much for your feedback. That is much appreciated, but I guess we are now looking forward to listening to your own presentation. Please give a brief introduction of yourself and then go on to give your presentation. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you so much. So I am Dr. Fineface Dumnamene Fineface. I work as the Executive Director of the Youth and Environmental Advocacy Center, YEAC, based in Nigeria. I also double as the Director of YEAC Community Energy and Development, focused on renewable energy advocacy and solar mini-grid development in the Niger Delta. So my presentation is focused on network on organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea. And we are looking at the trends, dynamics, and implications. The trends of organized crime in the Niger Delta and of course the Gulf of Guinea, Nigeria, is something that I think we are very much familiar with. And this issue of organized crime is something that is affecting security in the waterways and in the ocean in the Gulf of Guinea. And everybody is concerned about how to mitigate some of these issues because it is really affecting the way businesses are done, livelihoods of the people in coastal communities, and what have you. So in this regard, we shall be looking at the trends of organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea. We look at the dynamics, we look at the implications, we look at the drivers of organized crime, and then the government response to organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea, and then we give recommendation and mitigation mechanisms for organized crime in the region. So we shall be looking at this in a considerable detail, and refer to this organized crime, that we look at it from the perspective of a network of individuals or group of people, and even institutions that are engaged in criminal activities, often with a structured hierarchy, basically for financial gains. When it happens within a country, then we are talking about it as a national organized crime. But when it happens across international borders, then we talk about transnational organized crime. So the trends.
I'm so sorry to cut in. Would you like me to share your presentation, or you just go?
That would be fine if you can share it so that people can also be looking at it while I'm.
Yeah, so please share. I think it's my bad. I'm so sorry. I forgot. Because of his technical issue, we need to share the presentation. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, I'm doing that now. Okay, so let me confirm that you can see the presentation, and then
Yeah, I can see it.
I am trying to, okay.
So we're on the trends now.
Okay.
Next page. Yeah. So these are some of the trends of organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea. We talk about cybercrime. We all know what this is, those who use the internet space to commit this organized crime. And then we talk about oil thefts and petrol piracy, people that are involved in illegal oil bunkering across the international waters. These people are engaged in this by bringing barges and vessels into Nigeria, stealing this crude oil, and then going away with it. This is not possible if several persons are not involved in the network. And then we have the issue of kidnapping and, of course, extortion. It happens in the Gulf of Guinea. And this they do by targeting vessels and other people who use the waterways more. And then when they are taken hostage, they are asked to pay ransom, and then they extort the people as a result of this. Then you have the issue of human and drug trafficking. It happens a lot in the Gulf of Guinea, and is done with the collaboration of several networks of organized criminals. And then sea piracy is something that we are also all familiar with, and they also manifest in that direction because when they are engaged in this, they use arms and ammunition to also perpetuate themselves in this practice. So these are some of the ways that some of the trends of organized crime in the region. So basically, I really want to use the opportunity of this presentation to, say and classify, corruption as an organized crime in Nigeria, the Gulf of Guinea, or anywhere else in the world, because corruption is an opportunistic act that involves and requires more than one person, to carry out, and it shares most of the characteristics of organized crime. So corruption is an organized crime in itself because it is systemic. It's something that happens within a system, and a lot of people are involved in achieving that. You also have this manifesting as organized network of people that are involved in it. And then it happens on a large scale of financial transactions, both locally and internationally. And then you have this issue of money laundering that is also part of that organized scale of financial transactions that we can describe as organized crime. Then the impact of this corruption that has been described today as organized criminal activities is on governance. It affects the people because the resources that would have been used to develop the people for governance is being frittered away with. There is hardly any time you don't hear very serious issue of financial impropriety, coming out from Nigeria and other parts of the Gulf of Guinea. And all of this, we must say, it is an organized criminal activity. Then let's look at the dynamics of, organized crime. Now you have, economic hardship. You have, high unemployment as something that is driving it, especially among the young people. Then you have poverty in coastal and rural communities as some of the things that are driving this. Then you have dependence on oil revenue that creates lucrative targets because a lot of people are engaged in oil revenue, racketeering. The youth in this area are also trying to see how they can get in there, get crude oil, and then they begin to make money from that. Then we also have the geographic and environmental factors that we can say are the dynamics of organized crime. You have extensive coastal and porous borders. in Nigeria today, we have about 84 legal entry points into Nigeria. And again, according to the Nigerian Immigration Service, we have about over 1,400 illegal routes into the country. Today, the Nigerian army is proposing that they fence run Nigeria as a way of preventing organized crime. And I don't think that is going to be possible because Nigeria is very vast and it's going to be difficult because even when they try to fence run, they will still break down the fence and commit the crime. Now, rich natural resources, oil and fishing that is within the Nigerian waterways is also one of the things that attract exploitation that is happening as the dynamics of organized crime. And then difficult terrain is also hampering monitoring and control of acts of organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea. Now, another dynamic we are also seeing is in the area of social and political factors. Now, marginalization of certain ethnic nationalities and, of course, community groups are some of the social factors. We have the political instability, conflicts in the Niger Delta. We are all aware of the militancy for which we have amnesty granted in 2009 and some of its remnant that we are still experiencing today. Now, limited access to education and alternative livelihood opportunities are some of the dynamics that we are seeing in organized crime activities in the Gulf of Guinea. Then corruption and good and weak governance, just like what Sedenam was also talking about. You know, collusion between officials and criminal networks are aiding these criminal activities of organized crime. Then limited capacity of law enforcement and judicial officers is also not out of place to recommend for us to have a specialized court set up to try organized criminal activities so that justice can be faster and time-bound for us to really arrive at trying to address this issue. Then lack of transparency and accountability is one of the issues too that we can talk about as something that is the dynamics of organized crime. And then global demand and external influences. A lot of people, global markets are demanding for, you know, stolen crude oil from the Niger Delta and illicit goods. Some of these markets that has been created outside the shores of Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea are some of the things that are making this organized crime to thrive. And of course, the presence of transnational crime syndicates. Despite the fact that this happens in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea, a lot of people outside Nigeria are benefiting from this and they create that market that is helping them to make this to thrive. So this cybercrime growth is driven by global digital connectivity. Communication today is very easy through WhatsApp and other networks. They can use it to communicate, and within a very short time, they are able to commit this crime. Now, let's look at the implications of organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea. I think the key thing we are seeing here is economic implications. And the economic implication is very massive because government lost revenue, just like what they are losing as a result of IUU in Ghana. Then you also have increased operational costs because of the activities of organized criminals, those who are operating within the Nigerian waterways and the Gulf of Guinea. They have to spend more money on security, equipment, and other things for them to be able to operate. Then undermining economic growth because of the implication of loss of resources and, of course, operational costs that is now higher as a result of organized criminal activities. A lot of economic growth that would have been achieved is no longer there. Then we have the security implications. Maritime insecurity increases because of the activities of organized crime. And then terrorism and instability are some of the things we experience here. And as a result of all of this, we have humanitarian concerns because a lot of people within the coastal communities are having a lot of issues that they can't just manage on their own because of the organized criminal activities and the impact that it has on them. Now, due to the oil theft that happens, a lot of spillages occur and pollution, and it's telling on the people because the environment is polluted and, of course, degraded. And the people, the waterways are polluted. When they even cast their nets, they don't catch fish anymore. A lot of things they catch this time is oil, and that is impacting the livelihoods of the people within the community. So the maritime environment is destroyed because of pirate activity. So we have these issues of social implications like community displacements, youth radicalization, and then health risks that are associated with the impacts of organized crime. So the implication is very difficult and impacting on the people. Then you have corruption and weak governance. It's also showing up here because when this happens, it has a lot of implication on what is happening. Then erosion of trust based on some of these government officials colluding with the criminal networks to commit this crime. So people lose trust on the people. Then government have been trying to respond to these organized criminal activities in the Niger Delta. The Nigerian government have, delved into the Deep Blue Sea project that was launched in 2021, and they have about 600 personnel trained for that. And then 16 armored vehicles are also, deployed on land. And then a lot of barges and ships are on the water as well. Drones are deployed to ensure that they have some of these things to target and intercept criminal activities. Then maritime insecurity, the Nigerian Navy is taking steps to ensure that this doesn't happen. And then NIMASA, which is the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, they are also taking steps. ECOWAS is also doing something in that direction. We have the ECOWAS standby force that the Nigerian government have proposed to see how this can help to mitigate the activities of criminal activities of organized criminals in the Niger Delta. Then you have the Suppression of Piracy and Other Maritime Offences Act, SPOMO, that was enacted in 2019 by the Nigerian government. It tries to help the organized criminal fights in Nigeria by strengthening Nigeria's ability to tackle piracy and maritime crime in Nigeria. Then partnership with CSOs and civil society organizations are some of the ways that the government is responding to generating information like what we have through the network on organized crime in Nigeria.
Dr. Fineface, sorry to interject. Do you have about 4 to 5 minutes? Thank you so much. Sorry. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I'm wrapping up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Then we have the bill on the Coast Guard that has been proposed in Nigeria as well to also take care of some of these issues. Then specialized court is being proposed by Nigeria to address it. Then the next thing we have is to have the National Agency on Artisanal Petroleum Refining Establishment Bill 2023 that has been proposed by the Nigerian Senate to see how this can also help to, address the issue of organized criminal in Nigeria. Then regional cooperation is also ongoing, where you have, regions in the Gulf of Guinea working together to see how they can address this issue. International support is also there from the UN and the EU. So steps are being taken in different directions to address, some of these issues. So in terms of recommendation, let me just go straight to recommendation because of time. It's been recommended that we strengthen regional maritime security in the region by ensuring joint patrol by the different governments in the Gulf of Guinea, and that if that is done, it will help to address this issue. Now, governance and anti-corruption efforts should also be strengthened. If that is strengthened, it will go a long way to address this issue of organized criminal activities. Then addressing socio-economic drivers of organized crime is one of the ways that we can be able to mitigate this issue, because if these youth are busy, they won't have time to get engaged in this. And if we can foster, international partnerships, like what we're already doing is to strengthen it. And if we can address that fully, it will help us to address the issue of organized criminal in the Niger Delta by also pushing for awareness creation and community engagement, because people that are perpetuating these organized criminal activities are from homes, communities, and families. So if we are able to carry out awareness, I think we'll be able to address this issue. So I think I would love to stop here. I haven't finished the recommendation. And then when question comes, we can address other issues. Thank you very much for your time listening to me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fineface. I really appreciate you and the amazing knowledge that you've shared. I'm glad that I don't have the job of reflecting on your presentations. I'm going to bounce back to Sedinam to provide a reflection and feedback. Thank you for an amazing presentation.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Fineface, for this amazing presentation. And I think what stood out for me in your presentation was since it links to mine, was the drivers, and then also the things that we could do, your recommendations. So I realized that with the drivers, it looks like because there is no job for the people to do, hence why they are engaging in these activities. And if I realized it from what you said, if we don't tackle it from a point where we could bridge that gap, we would end up still recycling the problem of bringing a lot of regulations here out. We keep on bringing regulations here and all that. So I think we have taken too much time. I don't want to say too much, but your presentation was something I have really learned, and I think that the Nigerian and the Ghanaian stories are similar to. We have similar stories to share. So those are the reflections I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the feedback and reflection,
Thank you.
I think I'm going to open the floor for questions in case there are questions from the participants. I think there's one from else. Okay, there's no question. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, thanks, Elsie, for joining. We appreciate you. Is there any question from anyone? Of course, from the presentation, I see that there are relationships in terms of the causes of some of the issues that you highlighted. There's similarity in corruption that you talked about in Ghana. You also highlighted that in Nigeria. There seems to be a social livelihood connection to the issues as well in Ghana as well as in Nigeria. So those were the things that were so obvious to me.
Can I?
There's a comment here. Oh, is there, if you have a question, can you raise your hand if you want to ask by the video? If you want to ask the question by text, then you can also just leave a message. I'm trying to read the one that I don't know if it's a comment. Hi, everyone. I'm how the presentation. I understood. Okay. Okay. It's not a question per se, but oh, thank you. Everyone have really good things to say about it. Okay. Question from Ava. Were there divergence in terms of gender responses? I'm not sure if this came out or yeah, came out clearly. This is for Sednam, I'm assuming. Eva, is this question for Sednam?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, if the second presenter has something,
Okay, so question for Sednam, were there divergence in terms of gender responses? And then also for Fine Face, because I know there's so much to say about gender nature of the criminality in the Niger Delta. You can also reply, and then we'll come to Sumbo for his question. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Due to the nature of the study, I focused solely on the fishermen because they were the ones that were going on sea to get the fish and engage in their activity directly. But then I happened to have a conversation with some of the fish processors. And then what the responses that I got from them was, for them, they can see or they can know it when a fish is caught illegally. For instance, when you go to a place like Axim, they'll tell you that if a fish is caught with light, they can see it. If a fish is caught with dynamite or any other thing, they can see it. They have their traditional techniques that helps them to identify if the fish is caught with an illegal method. However, the effect it has on them is that because they use their hands to process the fish, they have, when a fish is caught with chemicals, they have the effect on their skin. They try their best to communicate it to the fishermen, but sometimes too, because the economic pressure that they have little. If I understood your question very well, yes, that's the best how I can answer it. They seem to they have the effects on them as well, but then, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I mean, I guess based on your response, it's clear there is a physiological implication, at least, from the use of, from the impact it has on their hands when chemicals are used for the fish that they buy. Thank you. Fine Face, same question for you.
Yeah, the gender perspective is something we cannot rule out because organized crime impacts the women, even more because a lot of women go for fishing, a lot of them use the waterways, a lot of them are engaged in one coastal livelihood activities or the other. But whenever there is these very serious activities of organized criminals, it impacts the women, the women even more than the men, because a lot of women in the Niger Delta depend on the waterways to survive. So basically, there is a gender perspective to this issue, and we pray that this matter is able to be addressed and reduced drastically, because I keep saying that we may not be able to eradicate organized crime, but we may be able to reduce it to the barest minimum if the government is serious and recommendations profile are well implemented. Then I think we can really be able to reduce to the barest minimum. So there is this gender perspective associated with organized criminal activities, especially in the area of trafficking as well. Women are trafficked more.
All right, thank you so much. Before I go on to Sumbo and then Godfrey and Josephine, the way you talked about gender and women, you're presenting as if women are affected. That is, women only as victim. Are women also perpetrators of some of this crime that you talked about, based on the research that you're doing or have done in the Niger Delta?
Yeah, basically the women are also affected, in this. And if I got you right, then
Are they also part of the crime?
yes, of course, women are part of the crime because they participate in the value chain of the crime. They are not leaders of organized criminal activities to the best of the research that we have carried out, but they support by way of providing logistics, food supply, even drugs, and even the movement of ammunition. Women are involved in those value chain. So it affects them, and they also participate in the process of perpetuating some of these criminal activities.
So that so women are not just victims, they have their agency to respond in the same way that men do. Sumbo, do you still have a question, or do I go to Mr. Godfrey? Okay, yeah, Sumbo.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I was listening to Sedinam's presentation, and there was a bar chart, I think you, or a pie chart you created that had three responses: poor enforcement, and there were three of them, and one had 38%, 29%. So I wanted to ask, I know you use RRT technique. Was there an intersection in all of those responses? For example, so like is there a section for those that had those three in the same as like there's an intersection between the three of them? Like somebody that said there was poor enforcement as part, there was poverty as one of the reasons, and let's say um education as one of the reasons. Is there a section for those kind of responders too, or you are very happy to differentiate them in those three boxes that you put there? Then the other question for Dr. Fineface is I enjoyed the presentation. I mean there was a lot of information there. But I wanted to ask how it seemed like it was kind of very descriptive in terms of the organized crime. But looking at the recommendations you have kind of preferred, what is the role of state capacity in this? As much as you have highlighted corruption as like organized crime, what would be the role of state capacity? So if does ECOWAS or even Nigeria or border states within outside Nigeria, do they have the capacity to combat organized crime or transnational organized crime as you have said? And then how about the role of greed, grievance, and opportunity? I know you should be familiar with that. Those theories speaking about greed, grievance, and opportunity, especially in the Niger Delta. How does that impact, like, let's say, organized crime, for example? Thank you.
Think we would prefer crisp responses to this question. And of course, the conversation can continue because the presenters are happy for their contacts to be shared, right? So, yeah, so if you can give like a very brief response, because we still have another hand or two hands. Thank you so much. Sidnam first and then Fine Face.
All right. So thank you very much. Yes, but thank you very much for your question. So with that part, yes, we had a section for others. We asked them to provide those who agreed with all those who didn't want to, or those who thought that their responses or the questions was not what they wanted to probably have other responses they want. Yes. Yes, there is that option. There was an intersection. Well, yes, some of them believe that all, whether it is weak enforcement or we'll say poor enforcement or greed or poverty, they believe everything that caused it. They don't necessarily say, some are of the view that it's not just one thing that causes people or pushes an individual to engage in some of these activities. Some believe that everything, all these things causes. So I'm happy to extend the conversation for further, can have a further discussion after this meeting. And I'm happy to share some of the results. Not everything was here, but I'm happy to share some with you later on. So I hope I'm able to give you an idea, or I'm able to answer the questions a bit to your understanding. Thank you.
Dr. Fineface, if you could respond briefly. Again, it's okay to continue the conversations on the side.
Definitely. I want to say that the states, the Nigerian state, and of course, other countries in the Gulf of Guinea, they have the capacity to tackle organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea. But they need to strengthen this capacity. And I think that is why the Nigerian government also recommended us having the network on organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea. I mean, having the ECOWAS standby force as part of what we recommended as ways of being able to tackle it, because we make them to understand that if we can have a task force on organized crime in Nigeria and the Gulf of Guinea, it will help them to be able to address this issue. So I believe that they have the capacity to do that. Then the rule of grievance address mechanism is something like that. I think in a way, they are trying to address some local livelihood issues and some of these drivers of organized crime. But what they are doing so far is not enough, because we have recommended that they also create modular refineries for the youth who are involved in illegal refineries, and also for them to legalize artisanal refineries, which is the act of stealing this crude oil to refine, through a process we call the Presidential Artisanal Crude Oil Refining Development Initiative, PACODI, very similar to what was done in parts of the north and western Nigeria, where you have the Presidential Artisanal Gold Mining Development Initiative, PACMI, set up for the youth in that region to address the issue. I believe we can talk more about this if this really make a little sense. Thank you.
Once we have Mr. Godfrey, could you ask your question, please? If you can be concise. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank Doc for his analysis on corruption. He's been able to show that corruption by itself is a transnational crime. I think it's very, very deep. But then the problem is, how do we deal with corruption? I don't know. I've worked for nearly 40 years, and as we started, is the same as we ended. The same corruption. So how do we deal with it? And then the next thing is population. How does population growth affect all these things? Because population is increasing at a very fast pace. So how is population, general population growth affecting all these things? Finally, on women involvement in crime, I think Josephine may be aware we had an issue with dynamite in the western region of Ghana, and we learned that women help to bring dynamite from the mining areas where they sell the fish to the coastal areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your question. I'm going to let Sidnam and Fineface respond quickly. There's also a question from Josephine on the chat. She's asking in the Ghana contest whether women, if they mentioned if women influence finance or enable their participation in the illegal activities that you talked about. So maybe if you can touch on that, or we can look at that later as well. So briefly, thank you. Or we can start with you, Sednam, and then Fineface, responding to Godfrey's questions first.
Well, I think Mr. Godfrey's question was mainly for Dr. Fineface, but with the bit that has to do with mine, it was more of an information I'm receiving, and I thank him very much for letting me know that aspect. Looking forward to having further conversations. And yes, I'm also going to use the opportunity to just answer the one in the chat as well, so that Dr. Fineface also takes it, since we don't have much time. Madam Josephine says that in Ghana, the officials mentioned, if women influence finance. Well, I've read studies where I do know that there are some women sponsor the canoes and some of these fishing activities. As to whether they directly influence or participate in these illegal activities at the moment, or for my research, I didn't hear that. But I'm happy to learn more or research into that. It looks like an interesting thing to join, or let's say an interesting thing to dig in to see where it can take us. So yes, thank you very much.
Yes. I'll quickly respond to the question by saying that how to fight corruption is basically for us to report corruption wherever we find ourselves, wherever we are working. When you see corrupt practices, you are able to report that. In Nigeria, there is a whistleblower policy that protects those who blow whistle. But then we need that policy, that law to be properly implemented, because we've seen a situation whereby people report corruption and they end up in police nets being the reporters. So it's something I think is a collaborative effort. We need to join hands together to report corrupt practices around us. And government should take serious steps to protect the whistleblower and ensure that they are not exposed to danger for reporting corruption. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your response. I don't know if there's any other question.
Population increase. The population increase.
Oh yeah, the population increase component of the question, whether you feel that population increase influences what's going on in that part of Nigeria, in that part of the world,
Definitely,
or in the
population
region at whole.
sorry. No, population increase is definitely, contributing to the situation that we have on the ground now, because now estimatedly since 2006 that we had our census in Nigeria, the estimate we have by 2025 is that we are over 230 million people. And these people are all scrambling on their valuable resources. So the high population increase is contributing to the issues. But then certain measures, like those one by the government, civil society organizations, are helping to address some of these issues. Like in our own organization, we have been able to set up a solar mini grid because we believe that if youths are engaged using electricity from solar, they will be busy away from organized criminal activity. So we need more collaboration and partnership to ensure that the population that has exploded does not, go contrary to what the society expects, and they don't go into criminal activity. So we need to really be able to address livelihood issues around population explosion so that they don't end up becoming those creating problem for us as organized criminals in the society.
Thank you so much so much for that response. I don't know if there's any other question. It's now 2 minutes past 2. If there's no other question at this point, I want to thank everybody for joining, for engaging, for contributing, and for actually being here and learning with all of us. I also want to thank Sednam and Dr. Fineface specifically for really impressive presentation. The regional context is different in that you were talking about Ghana, Nigeria, and some connections to Gulf of Guinea, but yet there seems to be intersection with the issues or the causes of the issues that you're talking about. It is clear, at least from my understanding of your presentation, that more than ever, there's a need for regional cooperation and regional collaboration. It is also clear that a justice-facing lens needs to be looked at when instituting some of the policies so that the solution would not end up forcing people further into criminality and some of the issues that you've talked about. On that note, I hope that you all join us again to next month's webinar, where we're going to continue the conversation on Voices from the Coast. At some point, I think in June, that's when we're going to have our inaugural Voices from Practitioner, which we're going to have every 6 months, where we bring policymakers and people from the private sector to talk about topical issues around oceans, governance, and security on the African continent. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you again to the presenters for an amazing presentation. Thank you to the invisible face that you're not seeing, Stephanie, but I mean, she is behind the scene doing a lot. Stephanie, where are you? I hope you're still here. Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you, which obviously makes everything that we're doing possible. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon.
Thank you, Doctor.
Oh, and for those that have joined, we will share the presentation, and with the blessings of the presenters, we'll share your contact should you request. Is that okay? Should any of the attendees request, we should share your contact with them. Is that okay?
Yes, please, you have the permission to do so.
Okay.
Yes, please. You do have my permission to do so.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.